The text message arrived at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, right as I was debugging a particularly nasty piece of malware for a client downtown. My phone buzzed against the glass desk in my home office, and Jenna's name lit up the screen like a warning signal. Inviting Cole for dinner Friday. Make it special. Jay. I stared at that message for a full 30 seconds, my fingers hovering over the keyboard where lines of code waited for my attention. Cole Merrick. The name tasted bitter, even in my thoughts. Jenna's college boyfriend, the hedge fund golden boy with his perfectly styled hair, and his Audi that cost more than most people's houses. Sure thing, sweetheart, I typed back, adding a smiley face emoji that felt like swallowing glass. I'll make it unforgettable. The thing about being married to someone for 8 years is that you develop a sixth sense about their lies. Jenna had been working late more often, taking calls in the other room, and suddenly caring about her appearance in ways that had nothing to do with impressing me. When she mentioned Cole was back in town last month, something cold settled in my chest. I'm Reed Trenner, by the way. 38 years old, IT security consultant, and apparently the kind of husband who gets invited to watch his wife flirt with her ex-boyfriend over dinner in his own home. I specialize in finding vulnerabilities in systems that people think are secure. Turns out that skill translates well to marriage. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Mason, my buddy who tends bar at Flanagan's downtown. Dude, saw your wife at lunch with some suit. Looked cozy. You good? Mason had been my friend since college. He had the kind of job that made him invisible to people like Jenna. Just the bartender, not worth noticing when she was whispering secrets to her girlfriends over expensive cocktails. All good, I replied. Thanks for looking out. But I wasn't good. Not even close. I saved my work and walked to the kitchen of our luxury condo on Beacon Hill. 23rd floor, panoramic view of Boston Harbor, marble countertops that Jenna insisted we needed. She was still at her PR firm downtown, probably planning how to spin this dinner invitation into something that wouldn't make her look like the cheating wife she was becoming. The refrigerator hummed quietly, covered with photos from better times. Our wedding day, vacations to Martha's Vineyard, Christmas mornings when we still laughed together. I opened a beer and stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking down at the ant-like people scurrying along the sidewalks below. That's when I started planning. See, most people think IT security is about firewalls and encryption. But really, it's about understanding how systems work, finding the weak points and exploiting them before someone else does. Every system has vulnerabilities. Every person has secrets. And every cheating spouse makes the same predictable mistakes. I pulled out my laptop and started with the basics. Our joint bank accounts, the condo deed, the investment portfolios that Jenna thought she understood but had always left to me to manage. Everything was digital now, which made it beautifully simple for someone with my skills. The condo was in both our names, but I'd been the one making the payments from my consulting business. Massachusetts law was clear about that. The savings account she'd been slowly draining for her new wardrobe and mysterious lunch dates, also traceable. By the time Jenna came home at 7:30, I had a complete picture of our finances and a plan that would make Friday's dinner truly special. "Hey, honey," she called from the entryway, her voice carrying that artificially cheerful tone she'd been using lately. "How was your day?" I closed the laptop and walked out to greet her. Jenna was beautiful. I'd never denied that. 34 years old with auburn hair and green eyes that could make you forget your own name when she wanted something. Tonight she was wearing a new dress I didn't recognize, and her makeup was perfect despite supposedly working late. "Productive," I said, kissing her cheek. She smelled like expensive perfume and guilt. "I'm excited about Friday. It's been too long since we entertained." Her smile flickered for just a moment. "Oh, good. Cole's really looking forward to catching up with both of us." "I bet he is." I opened another beer and offered her a glass of wine. "Tell me about his visit. Is he staying long?" "Just a few days. Business trip." She accepted the wine but didn't meet my eyes. "He's doing really well for himself." "Hedge funds, right? Must be nice having that kind of money." "Money isn't everything, Reed." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jenna had grown up wealthy, and while she claimed money didn't matter, she'd never actually lived without it. My consulting business did well, but we weren't Cole Merrick rich. We were comfortable, responsible, boring rich. "Of course not," I agreed. "So what should I cook for our guest?" She brightened, probably relieved to change the subject. "Something impressive? You know how you used to make that lamb dish when we were first married?" I remembered. Hours of preparation, expensive ingredients, the kind of meal you make when you're trying to prove something. Back then, I'd been trying to prove I was worthy of Jenna Ardell, the PR princess who somehow fell for a computer geek. Perfect, I said. I'll make it special. That night, after Jenna fell asleep, I made some calls. The first was to a locksmith I'd used for clients who needed to upgrade their security systems. The second was to my lawyer, just to confirm a few things about property law. The third was to a moving company. I need some boxes delivered tomorrow, I told the woman on the phone, and I might need a storage unit. How much stuff are we talking about, sir? I looked around our bedroom, at Jenna's walk-in closet full of designer clothes, her jewelry box, the collection of shoes that cost more than my first car. Not much, I said, just clearing out some things that don't belong here anymore. The next morning, Jenna left for work, at her usual time, kissing me goodbye and reminding me to pick up groceries for Friday's dinner. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then got to work. The locksmith arrived first. Professional, efficient, no questions asked when I explained I needed to change the locks for security reasons. The boxes came an hour later, and I spent the day carefully packing Jenna's belongings. Not everything. I wasn't a monster. But the expensive clothes, the jewelry, the personal items that were clearly hers. I even found some things that were interesting. Receipts from restaurants I'd never been to, hotel key cards from business trips that didn't match her calendar, a burner phone hidden in her jewelry box. The burner phone was particularly enlightening. Cole's number was the only one stored in it, along with text messages that would make a sailor blush. Messages about missing each other, about finding ways to be alone, about how Reed doesn't have to know. I photographed everything, uploaded it to a secure cloud server, then put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. Evidence for later. By the time Jenna came home, the boxes were neatly stacked in the guest bedroom, and I was back at my computer, working on client projects like nothing had happened. How's the dinner planning going? She asked, dropping her purse on the kitchen counter. Great. I went shopping today. Got everything we need? I gestured toward the grocery bags on the counter. This is going to be a night to remember. She smiled and walked over to kiss me, but I turned slightly so her lips caught my cheek instead of my mouth. I'm going to shower, she said. Long day. While the water ran, I made one more call. Carla, it's Reed from 23B. I wanted to give you a heads up about Friday night. We're having a dinner party and things might get a little loud. Also, if anyone asks, the locks were changed today for security reasons. Building management approved it, right? Carla Martinez had been the building manager for 3 years. She was professional, discreet, and absolutely loved gossip. She also had a soft spot for me because I'd helped her son with his computer problems. Of course, Mr. Trenner. Is everything okay? Everything's perfect, I said. Just want to make sure Friday's dinner goes smoothly. Thursday passed in a blur of preparation. I shopped for ingredients, confirmed the locksmith had done his job properly, and made sure all the financial transfers were ready to execute. Jenna spent the day at work and came home excited, chattering about Cole's visit like a teenager preparing for prom. He's staying at the Four Seasons, she mentioned over dinner. Can you imagine? Must be nice to expense everything. Must be, I agreed, cutting my steak with perhaps more force than necessary. I hope you two get along. I know you didn't really connect in college. That was one way to put it. Cole Merrick had treated me like furniture when we were at Boston University. The scholarship kid who wasn't worth acknowledging, except when he needed help with his computer or wanted to copy homework. He'd taken Jenna to formal dances while I stayed in my dorm room, coding and pretending I didn't care. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about, I said. Friday morning, Jenna left early for a client breakfast that I knew was actually coffee with Cole. I used the time to make final preparations. The lamb was marinating, the wine was breathing, and the boxes in the guest bedroom were ready for pickup. At exactly 3:47 p.m., and 24 hours after Jenna's text message, I executed the financial transfers. Our joint savings account, which had contained $47,000 that morning, was suddenly much lighter. The money didn't disappear. I'm not a thief. It just moved to an account that only had my name on it, which was perfectly legal since I'd earned most of it anyway. The condo deed was trickier, but not impossible. I'd been making the payments, I had the documentation, and Massachusetts law was clear about financial contributions to shared property. A few electronic signatures, some legal paperwork I'd prepared in advance, and suddenly Jenna's claim to our home became much more complicated. She came home at 5:30, glowing with excitement and carrying a bottle of expensive wine. Cole brought this from his private collection, she announced, setting it on the counter like a trophy. He'll be here at 7. Wonderful, I said, not looking up from the lamb I was preparing. I hope he's hungry. Reed. Her voice had a warning edge. Please be nice tonight. This is important to me. I finally looked at her. Really looked. She was wearing the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year, the one she'd claimed was too fancy for anywhere we ever went. Her hair was perfect, her makeup flawless, and she was practically vibrating with nervous energy. "Don't worry," I said, smiling. "Tonight's going to be exactly what everyone deserves." At 7 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. Cole Merrick hadn't changed much in the 15 years since college. Still tall, still handsome in that generic way that looked good in corporate headshots, still wearing suits that cost more than most people's rent. His smile was practiced, his handshake firm, and his eyes held the same dismissive glint I remembered from our university days. "Reed," he said, like we were old friends. "Great to see you again, buddy." "Cole." I stepped aside to let him enter. "Welcome to our home." He handed me a bottle of wine, something French and expensive, then moved past me to embrace Jenna. The hug lasted 3 seconds too long, and his hand lingered on her lower back in a way that made my jaw clench. "Jenna, you look incredible," he said, his voice carrying just enough intimacy to make the compliment feel like a secret between them. "You're too kind." She was blushing, actually blushing, like a schoolgirl talking to her crush. "Beautiful place," Cole continued, walking to the windows that overlooked the harbor. "Must have cost a fortune." "We've been fortunate," I said, joining him at the window. "I do well enough in IT security." "Right, you're in computers." He said it the way someone might say, "You're in sewage management." "Jenna mentioned you work from home mostly." "I specialize in finding vulnerabilities in systems people think are secure," I explained. "It's fascinating work. You'd be amazed how easy it is to exploit weaknesses when you know what to look for." Something flickered in his expression. Maybe understanding, maybe concern. But then Jenna appeared with drinks, and the moment passed. "To old friends," Cole said, raising his glass. "To getting what we deserve," I replied. Dinner conversation flowed like expensive wine, smooth on the surface, with an undercurrent that could knock you flat if you weren't careful. Cole talked about his hedge fund, his penthouse in Manhattan, his recent trip to Dubai. Jenna hung on every word, asking questions that showed she already knew most of the answers. "Remember that economics professor we had senior year?" Cole was saying. "Professor Williams? He always said the market rewards those who take calculated risks." "I remember," Jenna said. "You were always his favorite student." "What about you, Reed?" Cole turned to me with that practiced smile. "Do you ever think about taking risks?" I cut a piece of lamb, chewing slowly while I considered the question. "Every day," I said finally. "My whole job is about calculated risks, knowing when to act, when to wait, when to strike." "Strike?" "At vulnerabilities. In computer systems." I smiled back at him, though the principles apply to other areas of life too. Jenna shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "More wine, anyone?" As she refilled our glasses, I noticed her hands were shaking slightly. "Interesting." "So, Cole," I said, "Jenna tells me you're only in town for a few days. Business or pleasure?" "Bit of both." His eyes flicked to Jenna, then back to me. "I'm looking at some investment opportunities in Boston, thinking about expanding my presence here." "How exciting. Any particular sector?" "Real estate, mostly. The luxury market is really heating up." He gestured around our dining room. "Places like this are gold mines if you know how to leverage them properly." I almost choked on my wine. The audacity was breathtaking. "Leverage," I repeated. Interesting choice of words. "It's all about understanding what you have and how to maximize its potential," Cole continued, warming to his subject. "Too many people sit on valuable assets without realizing their true worth. Or they realize someone else is trying to steal those assets," I said quietly. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Jenna was staring at her plate like it might spontaneously combust, while Cole's smile became slightly more forced. "I'm sorry," he said. "Nothing, just thinking about work." I stood to clear the plates. "Dessert, anyone?" While I was in the kitchen, I could hear them whispering in the dining room. Not the words, just the urgent, hushed tones of people sharing secrets. When I returned with coffee and the chocolate cake I'd bought from Jenna's favorite bakery, they were sitting slightly farther apart, but the air still crackled with tension. "This looks amazing," Jenna said, her voice too bright. "I wanted tonight to be perfect," I replied, serving the cake. "After all, it's not every day we have such a special guest." Cole's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it with a frown. "Excuse me, I should take this. Market stuff." He stepped out onto the balcony, and suddenly I was alone with my wife for the first time all evening. "He seems nice," I said conversationally. "Reed, please don't do this." "Do what?" "You know what. The passive-aggressive comments, the weird looks. I know you never liked Cole, but what, Jenna? But I should pretend I don't know what's going on. Her face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone and opened the photos I'd taken of her burner phone messages. Really? Because these text messages suggest otherwise. She stared at the screen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. You went through my things? I went through our home. You know, the one we share? The one where you've been planning to screw over your husband? It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. I put the phone away as Cole came back inside, his business call apparently finished. Sorry about that, he said, sliding back into his chair. Crisis averted. Funny, I said. I was just thinking the same thing. The rest of dessert passed in uncomfortable silence. Cole kept glancing between Jenna and me, clearly sensing the tension, but not sure of its source. Jenna pushed cake around her plate without eating, her earlier excitement completely evaporated. Finally, Cole pushed back from the table. This has been wonderful, but I should probably head back to my hotel. Early morning tomorrow. Of course, I said, standing. Let me walk you out. In the hallway, Cole paused at the elevator. Reed, I hope I didn't overstep tonight. Sometimes I get carried away talking about business. No worries, I said, though I should mention, you might want to be more careful about your investments going forward. What do you mean? Just that sometimes what looks like a sure thing turns out to be a trap, especially when you're dealing with other people's assets. The elevator arrived with a soft ding, and Cole stepped inside. As the doors began to close, I added, Oh, and Cole? You might want to check your parking situation downstairs. Security's been having issues with unauthorized vehicles. The doors closed on his confused expression. Back in the apartment, Jenna was loading the dishwasher with sharp, angry movements. Well, I said, loosening my tie, that was fun. She spun around, her eyes blazing. What the hell was that about? The comments, the photos, the way you acted all night? I acted like a husband who knows his wife is having an affair. I'm not... Stop. I held up a hand. Just stop. I know about the burner phone. I know about the hotel receipts. I know about the lunch dates and the late nights and the way you light up when his name comes up. What I don't know is why you thought I'd be stupid enough to sit here and watch you two plan my humiliation. Tears started streaming down her face, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, just a cold satisfaction that the truth was finally out. Reed, please let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You made your choice. I walked to the guest bedroom and opened the door, revealing the neatly stacked boxes. I made mine. She stared at the boxes like they were explosives. What is this? Your things. I thought you might want them for your new life. You can't just... Actually, I can. I changed the locks today, and I moved our savings to an account with just my name on it. Turns out when you earn the money and make the mortgage payments, you have certain rights. Her face cycled through shock, anger, and panic. This is insane. You can't kick me out of my own home. Your home? I laughed, and even I could hear how cold it sounded. Jenna, you haven't contributed to the mortgage in 3 years. You've been too busy spending money on new clothes and secret phones and hotel rooms with your boyfriend. I'll call my lawyer. Go ahead. I already talked to mine. I handed her a manila envelope I'd prepared earlier. Divorce papers. I'm filing on grounds of adultery, and I have evidence. Lots of evidence. She took the envelope with shaking hands. Reed, please. We can work this out. It doesn't have to be like this. You're right, I said. It didn't have to be like this. You could have talked to me. You could have been honest. You could have asked for a divorce before you started screwing around with your ex-boyfriend, but you chose this path. Where am I supposed to go? I shrugged. I hear Cole's staying at the Four Seasons. Maybe he has room for 2. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from the building's security desk. Mr. Trenner, there's a situation with a vehicle in the garage. Could you come down when you have a moment? I smiled and showed Jenna the message. Looks like your boyfriend's having car trouble. Maybe you should go help him. 20 minutes later, we were both in the elevator heading to the parking garage. Jenna had called Cole, and he'd sounded frantic on the phone. Something about his car being blocked in and the security system malfunctioning. The garage was well lit, but mostly empty at this hour. Cole's silver Audi was parked in the visitor section, boxed in by 2 concrete barriers that definitely hadn't been there when he arrived. He was standing next to it, talking rapidly on his phone. What happened? Jenna rushed over to him. I don't know. When I came down, these barriers were here, and my key fob won't work. The security guard says there's a malfunction in the system. I walked over to examine the situation. Huh, that's weird. These barriers are usually only deployed when there's a security threat. Can you fix it? Cole asked. You're in computers, right? I'm in security, I corrected. And this looks like a security response to me. What kind of security response? I pulled out my phone and pretended to check something. Well, according to the building's system, there was an alert about suspicious activity in the garage around the time you came down. Probably triggered the automated lockdown. Suspicious activity? Jenna looked confused. What kind of suspicious activity? Could be anything. Unauthorized access, tampering with vehicles, loitering. I shrugged. The system's pretty sensitive. Cole was getting agitated. How long does this usually last? Hard to say. Could be a few hours, could be overnight. Depends on when security can verify that the threat is resolved. Overnight? His voice cracked slightly. I have meetings tomorrow. I'm sure you do. I patted him on the shoulder with mock sympathy. Tell you what, why don't you two grab a cab back to your hotel? I'll stay here and see what I can do about the system. Jenna looked between Cole and me, clearly sensing something was off, but not sure what. Reed, can't you just... I'll do my best, I said. But these security protocols exist for a reason. Can't be too careful these days. As they waited for their taxi, I made a show of examining the barriers and typing on my phone. What I was actually doing was uploading the photos from Jenna's burner phone to a cloud storage account and sending copies to my lawyer. The cab arrived and Cole climbed in first. Jenna hesitated at the door. Reed, she said quietly, we need to talk about this. All of this. We will, I promised. Soon. She got in the cab, and I watched it disappear up the ramp toward street level. Then I walked over to the security panel and entered my override code, a little perk of being the guy who'd helped design the building's computer systems. The barriers retracted immediately. I took a few photos of Cole's pristine Audi, then walked back to the elevator. Tomorrow was going to be very interesting. I woke up Saturday morning to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Most were from Jenna, progressing from confused to angry to desperate as the night wore on. A few were from Cole, asking about his car. One was from my lawyer, confirming he'd received the evidence I'd sent. The last message, time-stamped at 3:17 a.m., was from Jenna. Please call me. We need to fix this. I deleted it without responding. Coffee first, then chaos. That had been my motto in college, and it served me well in my professional life. I made a pot of my favorite dark roast, sat at the kitchen counter where Cole had been charming my wife 12 hours earlier, and opened my laptop. The building's security system showed that Cole's car had left the garage at 6:23 a.m., probably towed by whatever service he'd managed to find that would work on a Saturday morning. I made a note to send him a bill for the emergency lockdown fees. My phone rang. Jenna. Reed, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all night. I was sleeping. Some of us have to work for a living. Don't be like that. We need to talk. I thought we said everything we needed to say last night. Please. Her voice cracked. Can I come up? I'm in the lobby. I looked out the window at the harbor, where early morning joggers were making their way along the waterfront path. Normal people living normal lives, not dealing with cheating spouses and manipulative ex-boyfriends. The locks have been changed, I said. I know. Carla told me. She also said you told her this was approved by building management. It was. I am building management, at least for our unit. Perks of being on the condo board. Silence on the other end. Then, Reed, you can't just lock me out of my own home. Watch me. I hung up and turned off my phone. An hour later, there was a knock at the door. I looked through the peephole and saw Carla Martinez, the building manager, standing in the hallway with Jenna beside her. Mr. Trenner? Carla called. Could we have a word? I opened the door but didn't invite them in. Morning, Carla. Mrs. Trenner. Reed, please, Jenna started, but Carla held up a hand. Mr. Trenner, your wife says there's been some kind of misunderstanding about the lock change. She's asking me to override the new system. No misunderstanding, I said. I changed the locks for security reasons, as is my right as the primary mortgage holder. Mrs. Trenner no longer lives here. Carla looked uncomfortable. She'd probably dealt with domestic disputes before, but this was happening in her building, involving people she knew. Sir, I'm not sure I can get involved in a marital dispute. It's not a dispute, I interrupted. It's a simple property matter. Jenna forfeited her right to live here when she decided to have an affair. Jenna's face flushed red. You can't prove that. I pulled out my phone and showed Carla one of the text message photos. Nothing explicit, but clearly intimate. I can prove whatever I need to prove. Carla studied the screen, her expression carefully neutral. Mrs. Trenner, I think this might be something you need to work out with your lawyers. Carla, please, I just need to get some of my things. Your things are packed and ready for pickup, I said. I can have them delivered wherever you're staying. Where I'm staying? Jenna's voice was rising. Reed, I don't have anywhere to go. Sure you do. Cole's at the Four Seasons. I'm sure he'd be happy to help. Carla cleared her throat. I'm going to leave you two to work this out. Mr. Trenner, if you need anything from building management, you know how to reach me. She hurried back toward the elevator, clearly wanting no part of whatever was about to happen. Reed, Jenna said once we were alone, this is crazy. You can't just destroy our marriage over a few text messages. A few text messages? I laughed. Jenna, you've been planning to leave me for months. The only difference is I beat you to it. That's not true. Really? Then explain the burner phone, explain the hotel receipts, explain why you're suddenly interested in having Cole over for dinner. She sagged against the doorframe. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? Were you going to wait until after you'd figured out how to take half of everything I've worked for? Were you planning to string me along while you and Cole made your plans? We weren't making plans. Stop lying. I stepped closer, and she actually flinched. I know about the real estate conversations. I know he's been looking at properties in Boston. I know you've been feeding him information about our finances. Her face went white. How could you possibly? Because I'm good at what I do, Jenna. Really good. And what I do is find security vulnerabilities and exploit them. You're scaring me. Good. Maybe you'll finally understand how serious this is. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Cole. We need to talk. I showed Jenna the message. Looks like your boyfriend wants to chat. Should I invite him up? Reed, please. Actually, that's a great idea. Let's get everyone together and hash this out properly. I typed back, sure, apartment 23B, come on up. Jenna grabbed my arm. Don't do this. Whatever you're planning, just don't. I'm not planning anything. I'm just tired of pretending everything's normal when my wife is screwing around behind my back. The elevator dinged, and Cole appeared in the hallway. He looked like he'd slept in his clothes, and his usually perfect hair was disheveled. The night in a hotel room waiting for his car to be freed had clearly not been kind to him. Reed, he said, approaching cautiously. Thanks for agreeing to talk. No problem. Come in. I stepped aside, and Cole entered the apartment. Jenna followed reluctantly, looking like she was walking to her own execution. Can I get anyone coffee? I asked pleasantly. I just made a fresh pot. Reed, Cole said, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. Has there? What kind of misunderstanding? About last night, about Jenna and me. It's not what you think. I poured 3 cups of coffee and set them on the kitchen counter. What do I think, Cole? That there's something inappropriate going on. Is there? Cole and Jenna exchanged glances. In that split second of silent communication, I saw everything I needed to see. We're old friends, Jenna said finally. That's all. Old friends who text each other about missing each other's touch. Cole's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. Oh, you read private messages? I read messages sent on a phone hidden in my house, paid for with money from my bank account. I sat down across from them, which makes them my business. That's not how privacy works. Privacy? I laughed. Cole, you're screwing my wife and making plans to steal my home. Privacy went out the window when you decided to treat me like an idiot. Nobody's trying to steal anything. Really? Then explain your interest in Boston real estate. Explain why you're suddenly so concerned about how Jenna and I leverage our assets. Cole set down his coffee cup with shaking hands. Reed, I think you're reading too much into casual conversation.
Smile, because this is the last good day of your life.
Cute. Remember that night? Your office party?
Daniel, take Sarah home. Something urgent came up.
I'm pregnant. Who do you think the father is?
Am I? Then you won't mind if I record this conversation, will you, for clarity? I pulled out my phone and set it on the counter between us. The recording app was already running. This is Reed Trenner speaking with my wife Jenna and her friend Cole Merrick on Saturday morning, discussing the inappropriate relationship they've been conducting behind my back. Turn that off, Jenna said sharply. Why? If there's nothing inappropriate happening, what's the problem with having a record of our conversation? Cole stood up abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. Jenna, let's go. Go where? I asked. Back to your hotel room, the one you've been sharing? We haven't been sharing, Jenna started, then stopped herself. Haven't been sharing what? A room? A bed? A plan to screw over the inconvenient husband? Cole's face was red now, whether from anger or embarrassment, I couldn't tell. Reed, you're way out of line here. I'm out of line? I'm not the one having an affair. It's not an affair. Then what is it? Silence. The kind of silence that speaks louder than any confession. Finally, Jenna spoke. Reed, I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen. Yes. And you were planning to leave me? Another pause. Yes. And take half of everything I've worked for. It's not about the money. It's always about the money, Jenna, especially with people like you and Cole. Cole stepped forward, his hands clenched into fists. Watch how you talk to her. Or what? You'll hit me in my own home while I'm recording? He stopped, realizing how that would look. Here's what's going to happen, I said, standing up. Jenna, you're going to sign the divorce papers. Cole, you're going to stay away from my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, until this is finalized. And both of you are going to stay away from me, my home, and my business. You can't just dictate terms? Cole started. Actually, I can. See, I have evidence of adultery, which affects how assets get divided in Massachusetts. I have recordings of you two discussing real estate plans that involve my property. And I have a very good lawyer who specializes in cases like this. I walked to the door and opened it. I think we're done here. Jenna looked around the apartment one more time, her eyes lingering on the photos of our wedding, our vacations, our life together. Reed, she said quietly, I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. She walked past me into the hallway. Cole followed, but paused at the threshold. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. Through the peephole, I watched them wait for the elevator, not talking, not touching, just standing there like strangers. My phone rang. Mason, the bartender. Dude, you okay? Heard there was some drama in your building this morning. How did you hear that? Your building manager's sister works at the restaurant downstairs. Word travels fast. I walked back to the kitchen and poured myself another cup of coffee. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. What happened? I took out the trash. Need anything? Want to grab a drink later? I looked around the apartment. It felt bigger somehow, cleaner, like a weight had been lifted from every room. Actually, yeah. I think I do. Cool. Flanagan's at 8? Perfect. I hung up and opened my laptop. Time to get back to work. I had clients to serve, systems to secure, and a new life to build. But first, I had a few more calls to make. By Monday morning, Jenna had hired a lawyer. I knew this because my lawyer called me at 7 a.m. to let me know he'd received a very angry letter demanding I restore Jenna's access to our home and our joint accounts. They're claiming emotional distress and financial abuse, David Kellerman said. David had been handling my business contracts for 5 years, and he had the kind of calm, methodical approach that made him perfect for messy divorces. Can they make it stick? I asked, sipping coffee at my kitchen counter. Not based on what you've shown me. The adultery evidence is solid, and you haven't done anything illegal. Changing locks on property you own, moving money from joint accounts when you have evidence of infidelity, it's all within your rights. What about her claim to the condo? Weak. She hasn't contributed to mortgage payments in 3 years, and Massachusetts law is clear about financial contributions to marital property. They can try, but they won't get far. I felt a weight lift from my chest. So what's next? They'll probably push for mediation, try to negotiate a settlement. Are you open to that? I thought about Jenna's face when she realized her things were packed, about Cole's smug confidence crumbling when his car got trapped in the garage. Depends on the terms. I'll handle the back and forth. You just focus on documenting everything and staying clean. No more games with parking garages or security systems. After I hung up, I spent the morning working on a security audit for a financial services company downtown. It was good to focus on someone else's problems for a while, to lose myself in the familiar rhythm of finding vulnerabilities and building defenses. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Reed, this is Tori. Can we talk? Tori Vasquez was Jenna's best friend and biggest enabler. If Jenna was having an affair, Tori knew about it. If there was gossip to be spread or sides to be chosen, Tori would be leading the charge. I typed back, "About what?" "About Jenna. She's staying with me and she's a mess. This whole situation is crazy. She made her choice. Come on. You guys have been together for 8 years. Don't you think this deserves more than a text message breakup?" I stared at the message for a long moment. Tori was fishing, probably trying to get information for Jenna, or maybe just feeding her own addiction to drama. But she was also right about one thing. 8 years deserved more than what had happened so far. "Fine. Flanagan's at 6. Come alone." "I'll be there." Flanagan's was the kind of Boston bar that hadn't changed in 30 years. Dark wood, green leather, and the smell of beer and fried food that had soaked into every surface. Mason was behind the bar when I arrived, polishing glasses and setting up for the evening rush. "You sure about this?" he asked as I took my usual stool at the end of the bar. "Probably not, but I want to hear what she has to say." "Want me to stick around in case things get weird?" I appreciated the offer. Mason was built like a linebacker and had the kind of presence that made troublemakers think twice. "Thanks, but I think I can handle Tori." She arrived exactly on time, which surprised me. Tori was usually fashionably late to everything, but tonight she walked in at 6 o'clock sharp, scanning the room until she spotted me. "Read." She slid onto the stool next to mine and ordered a Cosmopolitan, which was exactly what I'd expected. "Tori." We sat in silence while Mason mixed her drink. Tori looked good. She always did. Personal trainer, expensive clothes, the kind of maintenance routine that required serious money and time. She was also one of the most manipulative people I'd ever met, which made her perfect for Jenna's inner circle. "So," she said finally, "this is really happening." "Looks like it." "Jenna says you won't even talk to her." "What's to talk about? She's been screwing around with Cole for months, planning to leave me, and probably trying to figure out how to take me for everything I'm worth. Conversation seems pointless." Tori sipped her drink and studied me over the rim of the glass. "You know, I always liked you, Reed, even when Jenna complained about you being boring or too focused on work." "She complained about me being boring?" "All the time. Said you never wanted to go out, never wanted to travel, never wanted to do anything spontaneous." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "And you agreed with her?" "Sometimes." Tori shrugged. "But I also told her she married a computer geek, not a party animal. If she wanted excitement, she should have married someone else." "Like Cole." "Like Cole?" She nodded. "Though between you and me, Cole's kind of a prick." That caught me off guard. "Really?" "Oh yeah. Arrogant, condescending, treats waiters like garbage. The kind of guy who thinks his money makes him interesting." She paused. "But he's also rich and handsome and tells Jenna she's amazing, which is apparently what she needed to hear." "And you supported this?" Tori was quiet for a moment, swirling the pink liquid in her glass. "I didn't support it, but I didn't stop it either." "Why not?" "Because Jenna's my friend, and she seemed happy for the first time in years, even if she was making a terrible mistake." I signaled Mason for another beer. "So why are you here, Tori? What do you want?" "I want you to consider the possibility that this doesn't have to end in total destruction." "Meaning?" "Meaning maybe you and Jenna can work something out that doesn't involve lawyers and public humiliation and everyone choosing sides. She chose sides when she started screwing Cole, and you chose sides when you changed the locks and froze her out of your bank accounts. I protected myself. There's a difference." Tori leaned closer, and I caught a whiff of her expensive perfume. "Reed, I know you're hurt. I know you're angry. But think about what you're doing here. You're destroying someone you loved for 8 years. I'm not destroying her. I'm just not letting her destroy me. Same thing in this case." We sat in silence while I considered that. Was I destroying Jenna, or was I just refusing to be destroyed myself? "What does she want?" I asked finally. "To come home, to talk, to figure out if there's anything left worth saving." "Is there?" Tori shrugged. "I don't know. But don't you think you owe it to 8 years of marriage to find out?" "I think I owed it to 8 years of marriage not to cheat on my husband." "Fair point." She finished her drink and set the glass down with a sharp click. "But Reed, if you go through with this, the divorce, the public mess, all of it, there's no coming back from it. You know that, right?" "I know." "And you're okay with that?" I thought about Saturday morning, waking up in my own home without having to wonder where Jenna had been the night before or who she'd been texting. I thought about the relief of not having to pretend everything was normal. Yeah, I said. I'm okay with that. Tori nodded and stood up. Then I guess there's nothing left to say. I guess not. She started to leave, then turned back. For what it's worth, Reed, I think you're handling this better than most guys would. Thanks, I think. And Reed, be careful with Cole. He's not as harmless as he looks. She left before I could ask what she meant by that. Mason appeared with another beer. How'd that go? About like I expected. Jenna wants to come home and pretend nothing happened. And you? I want her to sign the divorce papers and disappear. Fair enough? Mason wiped down the bar in front of me. Though I gotta ask, you sure you're not being a little harsh here? I looked at him in surprise. Mason had been the one feeding me information about Jenna's lunch dates with Cole, the one who'd supported me through the whole mess. You think I should take her back? I think 8 years is a long time to throw away over a midlife crisis. It's not a midlife crisis, Mason. It's an affair, with planning and lying and betrayal. I know. I'm just saying. People make mistakes. Some mistakes you don't come back from. He nodded and moved on to serve other customers, leaving me alone with my beer and my thoughts. My phone buzzed with a text from David, my lawyer. Jenna's attorney called. They want to meet this week to discuss terms. You available Thursday afternoon? I typed back, yes. What kind of terms? Property division, spousal support, the usual. They're also asking about reconciliation counseling. Not interested. That's what I figured. I'll set up the meeting. I finished my beer and headed home, walking the familiar streets of Beacon Hill as the sun set over Boston Harbor. The neighborhood was quiet, expensive cars parked along tree-lined streets, warm light glowing in the windows of million-dollar townhouses. This was the life Jenna and I had built together. The condo, the neighborhood, the carefully constructed image of success and stability. She was willing to throw it all away for Cole Merrick and whatever fantasy she'd built around their relationship. But as I climbed the stairs to my building, I realized something. I wasn't throwing it away. I was keeping it. The condo would be mine, the life would be mine, and Jenna would be the one starting over. For the first time since this whole mess started, that felt like justice. Thursday afternoon arrived gray and drizzly, the kind of Boston weather that made everyone walk a little faster and look a little grimmer. I met David at his law office downtown, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the common. Before we go in, David said as we waited in the conference room, I want you to understand what they're likely to offer. I'm listening. Jenna keeps her personal belongings, you split the savings 50-50, and you buy out her share of the condo at current market value. In exchange, she waives any claim to spousal support. I did quick math in my head. The condo was worth about $800,000, which meant I'd owe Jenna $400,000 I didn't have liquid. And if I refuse? They'll drag this out, claim she's entitled to half of everything including your business assets, and probably ask for spousal support on top of it. Even with the adultery evidence? Massachusetts is no-fault divorce. The adultery helps with property division, but it doesn't eliminate her claims entirely. The door opened, and Jenna walked in with her lawyer, a sharp-looking woman in her 50s named Patricia Morse, who had a reputation for being aggressive in divorce cases. Jenna looked tired, older somehow, like the stress was aging her in real time. Reed, she said quietly as she took the seat across from me. Jenna. Patricia opened a folder and pulled out several documents. Mr. Trenner, we're here to discuss a fair resolution to this unfortunate situation. Fair is subjective, David replied. Let's hear what you're proposing. For the next hour, we went through the details of their offer. It was essentially what David had predicted, a clean split that would leave me financially gutted but legally free. The problem, I said when Patricia finished her presentation, is that this assumes Jenna has a legitimate claim to assets she didn't contribute to. She contributed 8 years of marriage, Patricia replied smoothly. She contributed 8 years of spending money I earned while planning to leave me for another man. Mr. Trenner, Patricia's voice carried a warning edge. Personal attacks aren't going to help us reach an agreement. It's not a personal attack. It's a statement of fact. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder of evidence I'd compiled. Your client has been conducting an affair for months, possibly longer. She's been using marital funds to finance that affair, and she's been planning to leave me while maximizing her financial gain. Jenna spoke for the first time since we'd sat down. Reed, it's not what? True? I slid my phone across the table, showing the text messages from her burner phone. These are from your secret phone, Jenna, the one you hid in your jewelry box. Patricia studied the screen, her expression carefully neutral. How did you obtain these messages? I found a phone hidden in my home and looked at it. Perfectly legal. That depends on whose phone it was. It was purchased with funds from our joint account and hidden in our shared residence. I'd say that makes it fair game. David leaned forward. Patricia, let's cut to the chase. Your client committed adultery, used marital funds to facilitate that adultery, and was planning to leave my client while maximizing her financial gain. The evidence is clear and extensive. What evidence of financial planning? Patricia asked. I pulled out another folder, this one containing printed emails and documents I'd recovered from Jenna's laptop. Real estate searches for properties in Cole's price range, research on Massachusetts divorce law, consultations with financial advisors about asset protection. Jenna's face went white as I spread the documents on the table. You went through my computer. I went through our computer, the one we share, the one I pay for. Patricia was scanning the documents, her poker face slipping slightly. These don't prove... They prove your client was planning this divorce while conducting her affair, David interrupted, which significantly impacts how assets should be divided. What do you want? Patricia asked finally. Jenna gets her personal belongings and her car. I keep the condo, the savings, and my business assets. No spousal support, no ongoing financial obligations. That's ridiculous, Patricia said. She'd be left with nothing. She'll be left with her boyfriend and whatever assets he brings to the relationship. Jenna finally exploded. This is insane, Reed. You can't just cut me off completely. Watch me. I gave you 8 years of my life. And I gave you 8 years of mine, plus a home, a lifestyle, and financial security you never earned. Then you decided to throw it all away for Cole Merrick. It wasn't about Cole. Really? Then explain the text messages. Explain the hotel receipts. Explain why you invited him to our home for dinner. She was crying now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, just a cold satisfaction that the truth was finally being laid out in black and white. Patricia, David said calmly, I suggest you discuss this offer with your client. We're prepared to go to court if necessary, but I think you'll find the evidence speaks for itself. Patricia gathered her documents. We'll need time to consider this. Take all the time you need, I said. But understand that this offer expires if I find out about any more attempts to manipulate the situation. What do you mean by that? I mean, if Jenna or Cole try to interfere with my business, my property, or my personal life while we're negotiating, the offer disappears and we go to court. After they left, David and I sat in his office reviewing what had happened. That went better than I expected, he said. You think they'll take the offer? Eventually, Patricia's smart enough to know that the adultery evidence makes Jenna's position weak, and frankly, walking away with her car and personal belongings is better than what she might get if a judge sees those text messages. I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. So this could actually be over soon? Could be. But Reed, I have to ask, are you sure about this? It's a harsh settlement. She made her choice. I'm just making sure I don't pay for it. That evening, I was working in my home office when my phone rang. Cole. Reed, we need to talk. I thought I made it clear that we were done talking. This isn't about what happened before. This is about what happens next. Something in his tone made me pay attention. What do you mean? I mean, you've made your point. You've humiliated Jenna, you've destroyed her financially, and you've gotten your revenge. Isn't that enough? I haven't destroyed anyone. I've just refused to be destroyed myself. Look, I get it. You're angry. But Jenna doesn't deserve to be left with nothing. She's not left with nothing. She's got you. Reed? No, Cole. You wanted her. You got her. Congratulations. Now you get to support her. It's not that simple. Something in his voice made me pause. What's not simple about it? Silence on the other end. Cole? What's not simple about it? I can't... This isn't what I expected. What did you expect? That I'd roll over and let you two ride off into the sunset with my money? I expected you to be reasonable. I laughed, and even I could hear how cold it sounded. Reasonable? Cole, you screwed my wife and tried to steal my home. Reasonable went out the window months ago. I never tried to steal your home. Really? Then what was all that talk about real estate investments and leveraging assets? That was just conversation? Bullshit. That was planning. You and Jenna were planning to screw me over, and the only reason it didn't work is because I'm better at this game than either of you. This isn't a game, Reed. This is people's lives. You're right. It's my life, the one you tried to destroy. I hung up and turned off my phone. An hour later, there was a knock at my door. Through the peephole, I could see Jenna standing in the hallway, alone. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. What do you want? To talk. Please, Reed, just 5 minutes. She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, and her eyes were red from crying. This wasn't the polished, confident woman who'd invited Cole to dinner. This was someone who was finally understanding the consequences of her choices. Talk. Can I come in? No. She nodded like she'd expected that answer. Reed, I know you hate me right now. I don't hate you, Jenna. I don't feel anything for you. She flinched like I'd slapped her. That's worse. Is it? Reed, please. I know I made mistakes. You didn't make mistakes. You made choices. Deliberate, calculated choices. I never meant for it to happen this way. How did you mean for it to happen? Were you planning to tell me about Cole before or after you'd figured out how to take half of everything I own? It wasn't about the money. It's always about the money, Jenna, especially with people like you. She was crying again, but I felt nothing. 8 years of marriage, and I felt absolutely nothing watching her fall apart. What can I do? She asked finally. What can I do to fix this? Nothing. There's nothing to fix. It's over. Read. Sign the papers, Jenna. Take what I'm offering and move on with your life. And if I don't, then we go to court and you'll get even less. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. Through the wood, I could hear her crying in the hallway, but I didn't care. I walked back to my office and got back to work. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Patricia called. They're accepting the offer. Jenna will sign tomorrow. I stared at the message for a long moment, waiting to feel something. Relief, satisfaction, regret, anything. But there was nothing. Just a cold, empty space where 8 years of marriage used to be. I typed back, good. Let's get this finished. The signing was scheduled for Friday afternoon at David's office. I arrived early, wanting to get this over with as quickly as possible. David had all the paperwork ready. Divorce decree, property settlement, financial agreements. Everything needed to end this chapter of my life. She's going to be emotional, David warned me as we waited. Try not to engage if she gets dramatic. I just want to sign and leave. That's the plan. Jenna arrived with Patricia at exactly 2 o'clock. She'd made an effort to look presentable. Clean clothes, styled hair, makeup to hide the evidence of crying. But I could see through it. She looked fragile, like she might shatter if someone spoke too loudly. Read, she said quietly as she took her seat. I nodded but didn't speak. Patricia spread the documents on the table. These are the final settlement papers. Mrs. Trenner, you're agreeing to accept your personal belongings and your vehicle in exchange for waiving all claims to marital property and spousal support. I understand, Jenna said, her voice barely above a whisper. And Mr. Trenner, you're agreeing to transfer title of Mrs. Trenner's vehicle and allow her to collect her personal belongings from the marital residence? Agreed. We signed in silence, the scratching of pens the only sound in the room. When it was over, Patricia gathered the papers and shook hands with David. The decree will be final in 30 days, she said. After that, you'll both be free to move on. Jenna stood slowly, like an old woman with arthritis. Reed, can I talk to you for a minute? There's nothing left to talk about. Please, just 1 minute. David and Patricia exchanged glances, then stepped out of the conference room, leaving us alone. Reed, Jenna began, I know you'll probably never forgive me. You're right, I won't. But I need you to know that I never meant for it to end like this. How did you mean for it to end, Jenna? With me happily handing over half my assets so you could start a new life with Cole? I meant for us to have a conversation, like adults. When? Before or after you figured out how to maximize your take from the divorce? She looked down at her hands. I deserve that. You deserve a lot more than that. Reed, I loved you. I still love you. No, you don't. You love what I provided. The security, the lifestyle, the safety net. You never loved me. That's not true. If it's not true, then explain Cole. Explain the planning, the secret phone, the lies. She was crying again, but I felt nothing. Less than nothing. I was scared, she said finally. Of what? Of being ordinary. Of having a boring life with a boring husband who cared more about computers than about me. So you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about it. I tried to talk to you. When? When did you try to talk to me about being unhappy? Silence. You didn't try to talk to me, Jenna. You tried to replace me. There's a difference. I made a mistake. You made a choice. Own it. I stood up and walked to the door. Goodbye, Jenna. Reed, wait. I left without looking back. That evening, I was at Flanagan's having a beer with Mason when my phone buzzed. Cole again. Don't answer it, Mason advised, but something made me pick up. What do you want, Cole? I want to meet. Tonight. Just the two of us. Why? Because this isn't over. Yes, it is. Jenna signed the papers. We're done. No, Reed, we're not done. Something in his tone made my skin crawl. What are you talking about? Meet me at the parking garage in your building. 1 hour. I'm not meeting you anywhere. Yes, you are, because if you don't, I'm going to make your life very complicated. How? I know things about your business, Reed, about your clients, about the methods you use to gather information. My stomach dropped. What kind of things? The kind of things that could get your consulting license revoked, maybe even land you in legal trouble. You're bluffing. Am I? 1 hour, Reed. Parking garage. He hung up. Mason was watching me with concern. Everything okay? I don't know. I paid my tab and headed home, my mind racing. What could Cole possibly know about my business? I'd always been careful, always stayed within legal boundaries. But there were gray areas in IT security, techniques that were legal but questionable, methods that could be misinterpreted by someone who didn't understand the technology. The parking garage was nearly empty when I arrived. Cole was standing next to his Audi, which looked like it had been detailed since the last time I'd seen it. Reed, he said as I approached. Thanks for coming. What do you want, Cole? I want you to reconsider the divorce settlement. Too late. Papers are signed. Papers can be unsigned. Agreements can be renegotiated. Not these agreements. Cole smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. See, that's where you're wrong, because I've been doing some research into your business practices. What kind of research? The kind that involves talking to people who know how you really gather information for your security audits. My mouth went dry. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Because I talked to a guy named Jimmy Santos. Says you hired him last year to help with a penetration test for one of your clients. Jimmy Santos was a hacker I'd used for a few jobs, legitimate work, but Jimmy had a reputation that could be problematic if taken out of context. Penetration testing is legal, I said. Sure it is, when you have proper authorization, but Jimmy says you sometimes bend the rules about what constitutes proper authorization. Jimmy's a liar. Maybe, but he's got documentation, emails, payment records, details about methods that might not look good to a licensing board. I felt sweat beading on my forehead, despite the cool air in the garage. What do you want? I want you to give Jenna a fair settlement, half the condo, half the savings, spousal support for 2 years. The papers are already signed. Unsign them. Claim you were under duress, that you need time to think. I don't care how you do it. And if I refuse? Then Jimmy's documentation finds its way to the Massachusetts Board of Professional Engineers, maybe the FBI's Cybercrime Division too, just to be thorough. I stared at him, trying to process what was happening. You're blackmailing me. I'm negotiating. This is insane, Cole. Even if you could prove whatever you think you can prove, it would destroy Jenna too. She'd be tied up in legal proceedings for years. That's a risk I'm willing to take. Why? What's in this for you? Cole's smile became genuine for the first time. Jenna's grateful when people help her. Very grateful. The pieces clicked into place. You don't actually care about her, do you? This is just about controlling her. I care about getting what I want. And what you want is a woman who's financially dependent on you. What I want is for you to stop being a vindictive prick and give your wife what she deserves. Ex-wife, and she got what she deserved. Cole pulled out his phone and showed me a folder full of documents. 1 call, Reed. That's all it takes. I looked at the screen, trying to make out the details in the dim garage lighting. Whatever Jimmy had given him, it looked official, damaging. You have 24 hours, Cole said. Call your lawyer, tell him you want to renegotiate. Give Jenna a fair deal, and this all goes away. And if I don't, then you'll find out how much your reputation is really worth. He got in his car and drove away, leaving me standing alone in the garage. I took the elevator up to my apartment and poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon. Then I called David. Reed, it's kind of late. Cole's blackmailing me. I explained the situation, the threats, the documentation Cole claimed to have. Do you think he's serious? David asked when I finished. I think he's desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. What do you want to do? I walked to my window and looked out at Boston Harbor, at the lights reflecting on the dark water. 8 years of marriage, months of planning, and it all came down to this, a parking garage confrontation with a man who thought he could buy and sell people like stocks. I want to call his bluff, I said. That's risky. If he really has evidence of questionable business practices, then I'll deal with the consequences. But I'm not going to be blackmailed by Cole Merrick. Reed, think about this. Your business, your reputation, your freedom are all worthless if I can be controlled by someone like Cole. I hung up and finished my bourbon. Then I sent Cole a text message. Go ahead and make your call. I'm not renegotiating anything. My phone rang immediately. Reed, you're making a mistake? No, Cole. You made the mistake. You thought you could intimidate me the same way you probably intimidate everyone else in your life. But I'm not Jenna, and I'm not impressed by your money or your threats. I'll destroy you. Maybe, but you'll destroy yourself in the process, because blackmail is a felony, Cole, and this conversation is being recorded. Silence on the other end. That's right, I continued. I've been recording our call since you started threatening me. So go ahead, make your call to the licensing board. But when they ask how you obtained your information and why you're suddenly so interested in my business practices, I'll have some very interesting audio to share with them. You're bluffing. Am I? Want to find out? He hung up. I sat in my kitchen, drinking bourbon and waiting for my phone to ring, waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Cole to follow through on his threats, for my carefully constructed life to come crashing down. But the phone stayed silent. At midnight, I got a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. I typed back, yes, it is. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring whatever it brought, but tonight, for the first time in months, I was going to sleep peacefully in my own home. The divorce was final. Jenna was gone. And Cole Merrick had just learned that some people can't be bought, sold, or intimidated. I'd won. The story ends there, in that moment of victory, with Reed finally free from the manipulation and betrayal that had defined his marriage. No epilogue, no soft landing, just the cold satisfaction of a man who refused to be destroyed by those who tried to use him. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be a victim.